Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening for Tuesday, September 17th school board meeting. If you could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Deb, that was at 6 o'clock. If you could establish quorum, please. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mic is not on. There we go. Can everyone check that your mic is on and that you're logged into board docs, please?
I am.
Thank you.
I think my mic's working just fine. I'm in board docs.
Okay.
Motion.
Can I get a motion to set the agenda, please?
Move to set the agenda. Second.
Madam President, I'd like to pull something out of the consent calendar, please.
Okay.
I'd like to pull out the request for high school core content curriculum for $250,000 and move it to action item 8H.
Let's see.
Item H.
Yes.
Mr. Reiser, are you okay with that? You gave the first there.
Yes.
And who was my second?
That was me and I approve. Continuing with the second.
Online voting is now available. Leland, you may have to give me your vote verbal.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to presentation. Oh, wait.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Moving on to our presentations. Presentation A, we have the Mesa second grade team.
School board. School board, President Noyes, Superintendent Burrs. I'd like to welcome my second grade team here. They are going to do a presentation. We had started working with Relays Graduate School of Education last year. They have jumped on board this year and have piloted our program on data and PLC meetings, and they're going to do a little presentation and to show you what work is going on through them and through all the teachers at Mesa. Team leader, Kendra Gatt.
So I'm going to go ahead and have my team introduce themselves.
I'm Lori Lehner. This is my first year teaching. I'm Lori Lehner. This is my first year teaching second grade. I taught life skills at Mesa for the past 2 years. So it's a little different for me, but loving it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John, and I'm from the Philippines, working as a J1 teacher. And I've been teaching for, this is my 5th year of teaching. And I'm teaching second grade in Mesa, but I used to work in the Philippines for international students. Thank you.
And as Robert already said, I'm Kendra Gap. I'm your second grade team lead at Mesa. I have been with the district for a total of 9 years. I started as a para at Beach Street and finally graduated to second grade.
So what is data-driven instruction? So this is using data to improve students' learning experience. Data has to be collected regularly. The cycle's ongoing, weekly basis at minimum, and this can help educators to prepare for, anticipate, and respond to student needs. So the phrase data-driven instruction is used frequently in education circles these days, but you may be wondering what exactly is data-driven instruction. Data-driven instruction, or we call it DDI, is using data to improve the student's learning experience. In order for DDI to be successful, data has to be collected on at least a weekly basis or more frequently if the team desires or the need is present. Educators can then look at this data to identify where there may be gaps or lack of background knowledge in a student's learning. DDI helps educators like us to prepare for, anticipate, and respond to students' needs more efficiently.
We're going to look at how DDI is done. So first, we meet 4 days a week. Normally, we have some PLC time every day, weekly. 2 of these days are used for group planning, and the other 2 are to look at data. During the planning portion, we look at our upcoming lessons to complete our exemplars, which is what we would like to see our students doing. Determine possible roadblocks or misconceptions that could cause problems for our students, and to plan out what materials are needed. Also, we look at the potential data sources available for us. Many of our curriculums already have nicely made assessments available for use. Benchmark has both formative and summative assessments. Engage New York has topic and unit quizzes available through Embark Online. Saxon Phonics has regular weekly assessments, and our new program, 95% Core, also has end of unit assessments. This is an example of what we are using right now. It was provided to us by Relay. In this form, we go much more in depth on our standard or standards we are working on. We determine what our students will need to know, what misconceptions might be present, as well as the academic look-fors. The look-fors help with active monitoring, otherwise known as aggressive monitoring. This is a practice that helps students be more engaged and accurate in their responses. Accurate monitoring also helps students to build independence or build toward independent learning. This is that same template, just a different subject, math rather than phonics. This allows you to see that sometimes we have more look-fors and materials necessary in our lessons. The second step is essential. We have to have this step in. This makes sure that our data does drive our instruction. The second grade team has chosen to alternate between reading and math standards on a weekly basis. This means we may look at reading more in depth 1 week, and the next we look at math more in depth through our weekly data meetings. However, data collected from the week will still be looked at regularly. So if we look at our math 1 week, we still pull in our math data, our reading data from that, and just gauge holes in what we might need to reteach. We come together after planning is complete to double check that we have accurately chosen our standard or standards. Then look at which questions on the assessments will help prove mastery of the standard or standards. Then we determine how we are going to score these questions in order to assess mastery. This helps to ensure we are all on the same page when scoring the student's data. Finally, we add our student data. This is a weekly data sheet we use. We put the student data in the table. The student information is listed from high to low. A percentage is then added to determine whether it is necessary to reteach all or part of the lesson. Oh, sorry, guys. I got behind. One track mind, guys. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to John.
Okay, so lastly, if a reteach is necessary, it needs to be done in a timely manner. The form is used to help plan when and how the reteach is going to take place. The way we do this is first by looking at the class that performed the best and discuss the strategies that were used, seek out our coaches, ask your principal's input, in addition to brainstorming or researching new approaches. And right after, all the information is compiled, I'm sorry. The team then maps out the plan on the weekly data form. This helps us to better our own practices as well as student learning outcomes. Another nice thing is all these forms are housed in a team drive and a folder, which will allow us to reference them in the future. And to wrap things up, thank you so much, everyone, for listening, especially to me. I'm new here, and this is kind of new to me, but definitely enjoy this experience. So thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, we would be happy to answer them, or Miss Gap would be happy to answer them. Or you can always come and visit in our classroom at Mesa. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Our second presentation will be the Cortez FFA.
Hello, everyone and board. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Skyla Hamilton, and this is my second year as the Cortez Ag Advisor and Ag Teacher. And we have a lot of fun stuff happening, so I highly recommend you guys come to all of our events, mostly because we have fun. But I am going to kick it off to my officer team and have them introduce themselves, and then we'll get rolling. Hey, hello, everybody. So I'm a lot taller than her. We're the 2024-2025 Cortez FFA officer team. We're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves, and then we have a slideshow to present to you. So my name is Kinsey Whipple, and I'm the president of the chapter.
I am Colby McMillan. I'm a senior at Montezuma-Cortez this year, and I am vice president of our chapter.
I'm Adriana Smith, and I'm the chapter secretary.
I'm Remington Adams, and I'm the chapter sentinel.
I'm Connor Bears, and I'm a senior at MCHS, and I'm your executive committee.
Hi, I'm Micaiah Higgins, and I am the other member of the executive committee.
Okay, so like I said, we have a slideshow to talk about some of our upcoming events and activities that FFA will be doing throughout this year. But first, Micaiah and I are going to talk about our WLC trip because you guys helped get us approved to go to that. So we just wanted to let you know how it went and show you some pictures. So we have some pictures up there. We did a lot of super cool things. For those of you who aren't familiar with WLC, it's Washington Leadership Conference. So this summer, 3 of us FFA members got to attend this conference in Washington. So one of the things that we did was we did a lot of workshops. They had a whole bunch of sessions and stuff, and we just learned about how to be better people within our communities and better FFA members. And then we met a lot of new people during those sessions. There were like 300 FFA members just for that week, and we all stayed in the same hotel. It was super fun. So we did a lot of workshops and stuff, and we learned a lot from that.
So we went on a lot of tours in Washington, D.C. We went to the Arlington Cemetery, which was super cool. It all pictures do not do justice. We went to the Capitol, and that was pretty fun. There was a protest going on, so we didn't get to take pictures on the step like everyone else, but we still got to go look at everything. Then we got to go to the Holocaust Museum, which was super cool. It was a little rough, but in the Holocaust Museum, there were a bunch of other museums and everything like that. And it was really cool to experience and not just be able to look at pictures.
So another thing that every member there had to create was a living to serve plan. So those are plans that basically just help you give back to your community. So I'm actually going to fulfill mine this April. I'm doing a jackpot for livestock. So that's a way that I'm able to give back to my show community. Everything that they've done for me, I'm going to go ahead and put on a jackpot so their kids can show and hopefully win some prizes from that. So that was our WLC trip. Again, thank you guys. It's okay. Thank you guys for the opportunity for letting us go. And then Colby is going to talk about some of our fall events.
All right. So there are a couple things that aren't on this list that we've already done. We've had our first chapter meeting already, which we go through our opening ceremonies and all that, talk about things that we're going to do throughout the semester. And then we also had our Ag 1 visits where all of our officer team go to our ag classes and we just do activities with them throughout the day, team building, stuff like that. And then Colt Conference we had actually just recently in Bayfield. That's also kind of just a team building thing, learning leadership values among that. And then Hesperus Camp, we have that coming up very soon. It's a 1-night overstay in Hesperus, and there's more team building stuff, dancing, sit around a fire, just talk about things, just socialize with different chapters, just have fun. Our homecoming parade, which we will be building a float for. And we'll probably just have our separate ag classes work on that through wood shop stuff, building a frame. And on October 11th, that's also not on here, but it's big conference. Big conference. That will be held at the fairgrounds. And that is for all of our Ag 1 students. They'll just go kind of mingle with each other, have fun. Chapter speaking on October 23rd. And that will be in our main auditorium at our high school. And what they will be doing there is it is our Ag 1 students saying our FFA creed. So it's about a 5-paragraph creed by E.M. Tiffany, and they have to memorize the whole thing through weeks of classwork and all that. And then they try and present it in front of multiple judges. And then on November 13th is their district speaking. So there will be 2 people from the chapter speaking that make it to the district speaking, and this is in Ignacio. And they will compete for a belt buckle prize with other districts. So that's all for fall.
Our winter events, I'll be talking about our winter events that will be coming up, such as the Parade of Lights, which will be hosted by us, which will be put together by us executive committees. The Christmas party is still to be determined in the ag shop. As of the chili cook-off will be moved to our FFA week, which we have tons of things that we do that week.
Some of the other things we do is stock show, and that is where it's based on a point system where you have to go to a certain number of FFA events to gain points, and you have to also be eligible to go to these bigger events. And stock show basically is where everyone in the chapter gets an opportunity to go to. It's in Denver where they hold all the rodeos and stock show, and everybody from FFA and other places get to go and just mingle and make friends, and you get to meet new people. We also have the Cattleman's Banquet, which we usually help serve food at. We pick up the plates and clear the dance floor when it's ready. FFA week, we also have that, which is when we do like dress up days or any other fun events like the chili cook-off. It's pretty much just a whole week where we represent FFA and we get to have fun with all of our FFA members.
I just want to say our slideshow is correct on here. I don't know what happened over there, but it's right on here. Okay, Adriana's going to do our spring events now. Hopefully, nope, that's not right either. It is on here. This is not our fault, okay? Hi, everybody. Luckily, I know how to read, so I won't get too confused here. So March 6th, we have our Quiz Bowl competition. This is opened up to all of our Ag 1 students. They compete with everybody in our district. So from Dove Creek to Pagosa, Ignacio, Durango, and Cortez, they compete and they are quizzed on ag facts. So that'd be ag mechanics, FFA, plant science, and just general ag education. Then we have our district CDE contest, which will be in April. This is where all our students get the chance to compete in livestock judging, food science and technology, veterinary science, and many others. These are career development events. We have our Cortez auction, which will be also in April. This is where we just kind of get in touch with the community, get to know everybody, build connections, and have a nice auction and a dinner, and hopefully raise some money. We also have our Cortez FFA jackpot, which is Kenzie's Living to Serve plan. This is where we'll have kids come to show their livestock, get a chance to get comfortable with the showing part of being a show stock kid. Then we have state CDEs, which is April 28th. This is when we go to Fort Collins for 2 days and we get to compete at the state level in our CDEs. So that's, again, vet science, food science and technology, and many others. And if we do good at districts, then we get the opportunity to go to state for our events. And then we have our FFA banquet, which is in May. This is where we get all of our FFA kids together and we give out awards. We have a nice dinner. We get to talk to families, and it's just a fun night to end off the year and give everybody recognition for all of their accomplishments throughout the year. And then we have state convention, which is June 5th through the 8th. This is where we get to go to state. We get to watch kids compete in Quiz Bowl, in prepared speaking, extemporaneous speaking. We get to watch new officers be introduced into the state officer team. And we get to spend a bunch of time with our FFA chapters and get to meet new people throughout the state in different chapters. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. Thank you. Okay. So thank you guys for making time for us. We appreciate it. Are there any questions? Ed, you got anything?
So can you do the creed?
Oh my gosh, no, that was like 4 years ago. What? I cannot. Okay, well, thank you again for your time and have a good rest of your night.
Thank you all for coming and presenting tonight. Thank you.
Sorry about the slide.
Yep, always a pleasure. Yeah, no worries. All right, celebration reports. Does anybody have any celebration reports at this time?
Not really a school thing, I guess, but it's sort of. I had the first concert for the Southwest Concert Series up at the high school 2 Saturdays ago, I think it was. And the reason I bring that up in the celebration report, because my job at the end of it was to take the banners off the wall, and being slightly vertically challenged, crews came to my rescue and helped take them off for me. So that was my celebration that night, Cruz. It was a really good concert. It had probably 300, 350 people there at least, I'm guessing. The auditorium was pretty full. It was good. So.
You know, our golf team did exceptionally well this last, I don't know.
Softball played this afternoon, but I didn't get to pick it up there.
President Noyes. Is that on? Okay. I just wanted to say I had an opportunity to watch the softball team play on Saturday, and that's a very impressive group of young ladies out there. I think their competition never advanced past second base, and I think they were over like in 3 or 4 innings because they had scored so many runs, and the other team just could not recover. So that's a sharp group of girls. So.
All right. Reports, B, student representative reports. Cruz, do you have anything for us?
I actually have a couple of things tonight. One of them's on your consent calendar. It's for the ThesCon this December. It's the theater trip that the middle school and high school takes every year. So on this trip, we do IEs, which are individual events, which is where students here can go and perform a tech presentation, monologues, sing, all those sorts of things. There's also workshops that take place so that we can learn up there. And then there's 2 main stage performances that take place. So I just wanted to give you guys a little rundown on what that is on your consent calendar. And then another idea that I've had, just being a student in halls and hearing murmurs and whatnot, I've decided that I think it would be beneficial to do a suggestion box in the high school and possibly even in the middle school, where students can put ideas in a box and I can filter through them and be like, okay, is this realistic or whatever? And then I can bring them to meetings and get direct answers from you all to then take back to students and do once a month meetings with students at lunch at the high school. So just thought I'd pitch that idea to you all.
Are you going to take this on?
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Okay.
You're so brave. All right, superintendent's report is in the.
Madam President, my report is in the packet and I think tonight is really focused towards the achievement of the school district, our kids, our teachers, and especially our principals and what they have done. I do want to, though, as Ms. Tracy pointed out, there are a lot of rumors out there about this afternoon at the high school. I know there's an ongoing investigation, so I can't say much. We had a report that there was a student with a gun off campus and the police mobilized. They were there within minutes. We did our safety protocols. We locked down schools. Everything was good. There were no shots fired. There were the gun was not recovered. But the police are working on it. But our safety protocols worked very well. That's it. If you have questions about my report, let me know.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Lewis? Okay. All right, we will move on to the assistant superintendent's report, Mr. Ramirez.
President Noyes. The report that you'll see in a regular meetings will be in this kind of format as the directors begin to present their monthly information on all that they've accomplished in serving the district, the students and staff. I hope it was informative, and at this time, unless you have questions, we'll stand by that submitted report and allow our time to go to tonight's student achievement.
Yep, I for one appreciated those extra reports.
It's just amazing. And those were created by our directors. And so we'll be following up with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Executive Director of Finance report, Ms. Bradford.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. I just wanted to thank a couple of donors. During the month of September, we received a donation from Coca-Cola of Durango, Farmington, $660 in products that went to the high school. Since submitting my report, they also made a donation to the middle school, so I'll share the details of that in October. We also received a $1,200 donation for the high school volleyball team from Scalva Electric. So we're grateful for those donations as always. I've uploaded financials for you, and that concludes my report unless you have questions.
Well, thank you very much for the response on my question on the Q&A. I don't know how many people actually look at our Q&As, but we do actually put those in there. Great responses to everything on there. A lot of detail. I really appreciate that. So many things in there that people don't know. They don't know what we're projecting and all that. based on the numbers that are out there. So I do want to thank you for that.
Okay. Right, we'll move on to the Executive Director of Student Academic Services Board Report, Mr. Parr.
Good evening, Board, Madam President, Mr. Burris. The primary bulk of my report this evening will constitute a presentation from the Colorado Department of Education, presenting our information about school performance frameworks. Obviously, you guys have seen these because I've attached all of them to your packets, but sometimes it's good to have that outside perspective to kind of walk us through what those look like. So if we could have Mr. Andy Swanson join us on the Zoom, and he will walk through a presentation about our SPF.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, Madam President, board members, everybody there. As Jim said, my name is Andy Swanson. I'll share my screen here in a second, but I work for the Colorado Department of Education. I'm actually Montezuma-Cortez's main.
Andy, you're muted, so we're not hearing you right now.
Oh, not on my end. I am not.
Hear you.
Okay, there we go. Hey, okay. Sorry about that, y'all. Don't know what happened there. Like I was saying, thanks, Jim. Madam President, board members, everyone there in the district, Superintendent Burris. Very excited to be able to talk with you all tonight. I wish I could be there with you in person. Always love coming down there, seeing Cortez, working with your great school and district leaders. And I haven't had a chance to see this new board room yet. So I'm excited for next time I get a chance to get down there. I'll make sure to be able to do that as well. I work for the Colorado Department of Education, and I am your main support lead for the district. I've been serving in that capacity for the last 3 years and really always enjoy my time meeting with you all. I need to share here, and so I will just share my screen so I can talk through what I have as far as your school performance frameworks. So I've been doing this update for the last 3 years and always appreciate the opportunity to get in front of you all. I'm going to go relatively quick and then have an opportunity for you all to ask questions that you may have for me and I'm happy to dive into details as much as you want. But so far for tonight, what I have for you all is going to go over your overall school and district performance frameworks, a little overview of what that means, and then what are our CDE supports, and then have an opportunity, if you do have any questions, to ask those of me. So in general, to take a bigger step back at the 30,000 foot level, Colorado's accountability system consists of the state accountability system, which we will discuss tonight, which is the Educational Accountability Act, and primarily revolves around the frameworks that we'll discuss in a minute. There is also federal accountability that we're not going to touch on too much, but just note that those two systems don't always work inherently, unfortunately, with each other. And then, of course, more importantly, your local accountability, you all as the board, serving as the main accountability mechanism for your community and for your school district. The purpose of these frameworks that I'm going to go over is to be able to provide a statewide comparison of student performance. Really, the assessments and the data that's utilized by the frameworks, while certainly imperfect, and we can discuss possible changes that are coming down the pipe or things that might be changed within there. So one of the only ways that we have to compare students across the state on the similar metrics within those. It is utilized in order to identify what are some of the lower performing schools or districts across the state for the purpose of directing support and intervention in order to help support sites raise achievement for students. And then it's also used to identify high performing areas where we are seeing high academic achievement growth and post-secondary readiness in order to be able to recognize those accomplishments and to be able to learn from the best practices we're finding across the state. In general, here is how the breakdown goes for how schools and districts are rated on their performance framework. the vast majority of it comes from academic achievement and academic growth, as you can see on the left-hand side. For elementaries and middle schools, this academic achievement and academic growth accounts for 60 and 40% of their frameworks. That is entirely made up from the spring CMAS assessments in ELA and math. And then just this year was the first time that science achievement was added in there as well. For high schools, that is achievement and growth on PSAT and SAT, as well as CMAS science, and post-secondary workforce readiness accounts for an additional 30%. Districts, it's the same. It's a roll-up of elementary, middle, and high school for academic growth, academic achievement, and post-secondary workforce readiness. All of that data rolls up into one plan type or rating that you can see there on the right, going from a performance plan type to improvement to priority improvement or turnaround. Those priority improvement and turnaround plan types being the ones that are considered low performing, schools that are highlighted for support and intervention, and what would be considered our accountability clock. So moving into the results for the district that I think some of you have seen at this point, you can see from 2019 to 2024, the district's overall ratings. Again, we did not have frameworks in 2020 or 2021 due to the pause from the pandemic. In 2022, the district remained in priority improvement on year 2. Last year, the district received its first improvement plan type, which put it on watch. In order for a school or a district to completely exit the accountability clock, they have to have 2 consecutive years of improvement or performance. This year, the district earned another improvement rating and an additional 4.4 percentage points, moving it completely off the accountability clock. So that's a very exciting achievement for the district, and something I think your district leaders, your school leaders, your teachers, and your entire community should be very proud of completely exiting performance watch and being able to increase the percentage of points earned. I'm happy to talk through if you have questions about where some of those points came from, but a couple of highlights for you down there at the bottom. High middle school growth in multiple areas really was one of the main drivers of the increase in points for the district. There was an increase in achievement in both the elementary and middle school levels. And the high school had an improvement in SAT graduation rate and dropout rate. So some really good news, a lot of excitement as far as the trajectory that the district is on regarding student achievement results and the district performance framework. Now moving on to individual schools. If we start with the charter schools, if you look at 2019 again to 2024, the 4 district charter schools, Battle Rock, Children's Kiva Montessori, Southwest Open School, and Pleasant View, you can see from 2019 to 2024 how those schools have changed in their rating. Battle Rock moved back to performance again after being on improvement last year and increased significantly the percentage of points earned. Kiva slipped back down into priority improvement, which moved it into year 3 on the accountability clock. Some of you are well versed in this, but year 3 in the accountability clock means that they will be doing a community meeting this year. I will work with school leadership as well as your district on that. And then they will also be eligible for different supports and grant funding with that. Southwest Open School remained in improvement, and Pleasant View was at performance with 57.5% of the points earned. Going on to secondary schools in the district. Huge shout out to Montezuma-Cortez Middle School, achieving performance and performance by a decent percentage with 61.7% of the points earned. And I will say, having looked at their framework, high growth in both ELA and math. I think school leadership and teachers in that community should be very proud of the work that's happened there and the results that they're getting for kids. At this point, having gone from turnaround in 2022 all the way up to a fairly high performance rating with that. The high school did achieve an improvement plan type. This is up from priority improvement last year. I will note that if you look at the percentage of points, they actually went down a little bit in percentage of points, relatively stable. But last year, if you remember, the priority improvement rating was due to lack of participation, which decreased the plan type by 1 plan type. They did get that participation up and maintained that improvement plan. So they are no longer on performance watch at this point in time. Lastly, elementary schools. Kemper, Luis Ariola, and Mesa. Kemper did see a slight decline in which they went from performance to improvement, but still not on the accountability clock. Luis Ariola went up to performance and has the highest percentage of points earned in the district. And Mesa has continued to grow and improve with a performance plan type at 57.5% of the points. Definitely showing from, again, that turnaround plan type in 2022, the significant work that's gone in and the fruits of those labors in student growth and achievement. So a school that definitely should be very proud, teachers, leadership, students, the community at the work that's gone in there and what they're starting to see within student achievement and growth on that. This is not readable, but you can see the colors here and kind of how things have shifted. This is the entirety of the district from 2019 there on the left all the way to 2024 on the right. And as you can see, most schools have shifted in the positive direction when we look at the blunt tool of plan type. And now the district only has one school in priority improvement at this point, which is quite a significant change from 2019 and 2022, and says a lot about the work that's happening across the district and the priorities that the district has made to support schools in some of their achievement, as well as, of course, the hard work happening by your leaders and your teachers and the entirety of the community. Two things I will note is that there are a couple of federally identified schools that I'll be working with the district on just flagging some of the small requirements that have to happen with that, but nothing big and concerning on that front as far as this point in time goes. As I stated, only one priority improvement school. You can see how that has shifted over time with frameworks. So from 2019, when there were 3 priority improvement schools, 2022, 1 priority improvement and 2 turnaround. And then last year, there was 1 priority improvement, but 2 that were insufficient state data. And now we're close to getting every single school off the clock at this point within that. As far as CDE supports go, we are very happy to celebrate with you all the massive successes that you're seeing with student achievement and growth as that continues to tick up over time. One of the things means is that there is a little less grant support available with that, but there are some sites that are available for some of our school improvement grant funding. I'll be working specifically with district and schools on those. You do, however, have a designated support lead, so myself, and then some school improvement support as well from Jason Thomas, who I'll put his information here on the screen in a second. We're always available for technical assistance and to help you all with any supports that you can need. We're always happy to do whatever we can to help you continue and sustain the efforts that are ongoing right now. So with that, you can see there's my contact information and my colleague, Jason Thomas, who will also be serving as support lead this year. We're happy to support you all however we can and just excited to see some of the progress and share some good news with you all tonight. So with that, I will open it up to questions.
Would you mind highlighting a little bit about what it means that since we've moved our schools off the clock and what that means in regards to your connection with the district and you highlighted supports, but what that really means and why you joined us in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jim. So I primarily work in my role with the lowest performing schools and districts across the state. And so when I rejoined CDE in 2021, Montezuma-Cortez became part of my caseload. If you all remember at that time, also Mesa Elementary was heading toward what we thought might be year 5 in an accountability hearing. And so we were bracing for some significant accountability from the state within that point. And so I've been working with your district leadership, as well as your school leaders, your principals, with classroom walkthroughs, with helping support with what grant resources are available. The relay work that the district has chosen to do is through in many ways, through some CDE grant funding. And so that has been the nature of my support. With your increase in student achievement and growth, I'll kind of start slowly taking a step back. I'm not going to lose your number or anything, but Jason Thomas of our SIP team, which is our more targeted and universal supports, will take a little more lead, and he's been working with the district over the last year as well. But those are some of the supports that kind of go a little bit. We have to be a little bit focused on some areas that aren't seeing the same level of growth that you are. But some of the supports that are still available is with your school improvement planning and some of those aspects of things, and helping support always your district leadership with things that they may need.
Andy, said Rice on the board. We still have some of that easy grant available, I believe, right? What kind of things can it be used for at this point yet?
Yes, that is a great question, Ed. And there are, you do have funds, because last year the district wisely did apply for some funding that went through this year when schools were identified. And so a lot of that funding is being utilized for the Relay partnership that's working across the district. I know you are using other funds as well, but some of that is CDE Easy grant funding. There are also sometimes opportunities to go do budget revisions if there are shifts that need to happen. And so we can work with the district on some of that. But the vast majority of your easy funds are tailored to school improvement efforts, specifically at the grant funded schools, which I believe were Mesa and the high school. That would still be available within this. There also is some funding, I believe, for Southwest Open School on one of their grants.
Does anybody have any other questions for Andy?
I've got a question. Sorry, that's so loud. When I was looking through the school by school data, I noticed that there were a lot of lower achievement scores, but then the growth showed strong outcomes. Can you kind of speak to, is there any conclusion we can draw from that?
Yeah, this is a great question. I'm really glad you brought this up. As I stated before, especially at the elementary level, 60% of your SPF is based on academic growth. And academic growth is essentially, not to get too technical in it, but it essentially is measuring how did your students grow versus their academic peers. So how did they do versus students who had scored similarly to them? So it isn't taking advanced students and scoring them versus students who may have scored unsatisfactorily the year before. So it really is kind of an interesting comparison point of an academic peer group. I have to say, you can have good growth and high growth and still have students that are not scoring proficient on state assessments. What we often say is, where you have students in some of your schools who are coming in 2, 3, 4 grade levels behind, it takes 3 to 4 years of consistent high academic growth, especially the kind of growth that you saw this year at Mesa in the middle school, for students to really start catching up and see those achievement gains across the system. So this is to be celebrated. For sure, it's showing a lot of hard work that's paying off within the district, but it's also to note, to your point, of like, the achievement is still not at the level where you would say students are going through the system in a way in which is going to allow them to have all their post-secondary options available to them. Continuing to get this level of growth is going to start to see that, especially as you see it at the elementary and middle school. That will start to trickle up to the high school over time. But that it takes a while to move achievement percentile ranks to the level where we want them to be, and the level of you all want that for your students within this time. I don't know if that helps, but there's kind of the growth and achievement kind of mixed bag there.
That was very helpful to explain the difference between the two, and that there's still a long way to go.
Well, Andy, I want to thank you for joining us tonight and presenting that amazing bunch of news. Yeah, pretty excited for our district. So if I understand it, you'll still, you like you said, you aren't going to lose our number. So how often do you see, when in your position, see these kind of gains like this, and then do you see them revert back, or do you see them? I mean, just statistically, like,
Yeah, I don't know if I can give you specific statistics, but I do see both of gains that are sustained, and then also sometimes when especially when you're relying on academic growth, those can actually fall back relatively easily if you move on from some of the things that really got you there. Within that, growth can be very unstable at times, and what we know is, especially students who may come in below grade level, 2 to 3 years of high academic growth is really what starts to turn the corner for them. As far as statistics, one thing I can tell you that I looked up before is when you look at least districts percentage of points earned on the district performance framework this year versus last year, and how much did a district go up in percentage of points earned. Montezuma-Cortez School District was in the top 20% in the state as far as the percentage gain of points earned on the district performance framework. So that's definitely to be celebrated for sure. I'm happy to send to Superintendent Burris and Jim some more specific information, and look up any other statistics if you want to know specifics beyond that.
that's incredible news. Thank you so much. I don't know if the board, any more questions? But we do thank you for being here to present tonight, and thank you for your involvement in helping us.
Thank you all. It's my pleasure. Always love working with you all as a district.
Andy, thank you for working with us. It's been a pleasure doing this with you, and the support that you guys have shown us is incredible. And I'm so proud of the teachers and the kids and the achievement that they have made. And yeah, it's a long way to go, but you got to start somewhere, and we've done it.
Agreed. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, just a couple other items that I wanted to highlight in my report. In similar fashion, Andy Swanson referred to relay a couple of times in his conversation, and we also had our second grade team from Mesa talking about some protocols that they're going through for data-driven instruction. Relay Graduate School of Education is a resource that we grabbed hold of back when our ratings were a little bit lower and we had some resources available to us because of that. What they do is they come in and they help our principals organize and plan for PLCs, DDI, and also observation and feedback of teachers. And they were with us last week for 3 days. They came in and they did some walkthroughs through our schools. We did some observations, talked about some of the things we saw, some of the areas that we can work on, some of the things that that we can improve upon. And they will be with us virtually coaching, and then a couple of more in-person site visits as we go later on in the year. But they are with us to help us support those efforts that we have already seen some fruits of those labors, but want to continue with that work in a strong fashion while we have those resources available. So they were with us last week, and we'll definitely be looking forward to their next visit as we get to the middle part of the year. Unified Improvement Plan update. Those are all in progress, and we will have executive summaries available for the board before the work session coming up here in another week or so, so that everybody can have a look at those and we can have a discussion at the work session about what those plans include. I have listed also Aubrey dashboard demo. I have Mr. Burris and I have a meeting with Aubrey tomorrow to discuss a dashboard that they've put together for us. So I don't feel like we're in a good position to share that at this moment, because I want to make sure that it's right. But it's also around all of this work. It's a lot of CMAS data. It's a lot of information that we can use in a more specific way. The Aubrey dashboard is our data warehouse, and the dashboards that they build out from that are tools that we can use to look closely at our student data. CMAS is just one of the assessment platforms that will be on there, along with our STAR testing data and other assessments as we go forward. So we're really excited about what this can do for us. It will even help us build out a dashboard that we can attach to our website, so that so that the public can have access to looking at that data as well. So that's coming up. And just a couple other notes. Our district accountability committee meeting was last week. And it was just to give you kind of a rundown of how that went. It was spent a lot of time looking at school performance frameworks because they had been released right before that meeting. So we shared that information out with all of the members. And a couple other things that happened in that meeting were discussion of goals for the year, which I don't believe were finalized, but just kind of some on the surface conversations around goals. And then the adding of members to the DAC. So those are the big things that were discussed at the DAC meeting. And the last thing I want to make sure everybody's aware of, October is always our big month for meetings. We have 3 meetings out of 4 weeks in October. So I'm sorry for that, but it is something that we need to do. And we will have our IPP board meeting taking place towards the end of the month. So just keep that on your radar. I know you guys have it on your calendars and whatnot, but that will be taking place. All right. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Parr, I'll just note that we are having that IPP meeting at the high school library.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Parr. Executive Director of Human Resources report. Mr. Schmidt.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the board. Is that working? Okay. I asked Mr. Parr to let me go before he went because I don't have anything near as exciting as the information that he shared. I did provide you all with a written report. I don't have anything to add to that unless there are questions from the members.
I have a question. Thanks for the report.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering if you could, I didn't see anywhere on the report about the number of retirees and so forth, what time period that covered. So is that for all of last year till now, or is that over the summer?
That's just the new report or the new retirees or resignations or new hires since your last meeting.
So that was all for 1 month.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Some of the vacancies are not brand new though, like the ones filled by long-term subs.
Oh,
have been
yeah.
Filled by those.
Yeah.
For the duration of the year.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just in your request in here too for the staffing deal, can you explain that a little bit more? What are you?
Which piece?
What are you trying to accomplish on
for the temp staffing?
For the temp staffing? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what we're looking to do is there's a couple of pieces. One, we have a lot of paper files that need to be converted to electronic files and stored on our servers so that we can have both. That really helps whenever files become retired. We keep them in the office when they're inactive employees for a certain period of time, but then they go to the warehouse. And at that point, they are really hard to recover specific files when we need to do that. So one of the pieces is converting those to electronic. The other piece is overhauling the existing files. We want to make sure that they're in compliance, that we're not missing any important pieces, going and recovering those pieces and adding them to the files if we are. Also, the format of those files, they really need to be segmented, with certain pieces being for different functions. You got your new hire paperwork, you've got maybe some transcripts and continuing education, you've got the contract section. There's also some confidential sections that even when maybe a supervisor, like a principal, wants to come look at a file, we have to remove. And so that part can be segmented as well. Currently, there's not a good, it's just one file. So we need to go through it, make sure it's complete, fill the gaps that are missing, and then also organize it in a way that's more customary for personnel files in school districts.
You're anticipating 30 days, basically.
Yeah, so it's a project that we want to complete, in a relatively short period of time. If we were to take that on with our existing staffing, that's something that we might be able to dedicate a few hours a week or two. And we want to make sure, if we do that, that's going to take months to do that. And we'd like to really get that knocked out and have ourselves in a position where we feel confident that our files are complete and accurate and in the way that they need to be in a shorter period of time. Given the fact that we are a small community and a lot of people know one another, we would like to contract with a temp agency that's either in Farmington or Durango, so that there's less of a likelihood. Of course, they'll have to fill out confidentiality agreements and whatnot, but less of a likelihood that they'll know a lot of the people that they're looking at files for. You're welcome.
Okay. Unless anybody has any more questions for Mr. Schmidt, we will move on to board reports.
Yeah, just so I was kind of curious on these ratings that we got from CDE, because I see the improvement that's been made over the last 2 years, and me being new to this, I don't know how big that was. And so I tried to find out by getting into the CDE database and looking at historical data for our district. And I'm not real good at it yet, so I can't say that I'm completely accurate. But what I think I found was, for the district ratings anyway, I saw data from 2009 forward. And in that time period, our district had not had the improvement plan but 1 year. All the other years, it was below that in the priority improvement. And in none of those years did the percentage of points go higher than what was achieved last in 23 and in 24. And so that impressed me. And to the point where I wrote an article about it in the Cortez Chronicles, and I've got some numbers in there that kind of show the improvement. I don't remember those numbers, and I didn't bring the article in order to quote it, but I was impressed by what I saw, and I hope the public and the parents are impressed by the last 2 years' achievements in this district. So.
It's been a busy couple of weeks, the last couple of weeks with other meetings. I'm going to start with the LRC, which is the Legislative Review Committee that I take on with CASB. We are in the process of putting in resolutions. The way this process works is any school district can write up a resolution. They give it to CASB. If CASB basically endorses it and moves it on, then it'll go in this coming winter to be drawn up, hopefully by some state legislature to bring it into law. So we had 6 resolutions that were presented last week. I'll just run through them real quickly. First one was calls for an audit of K-12 accreditation and accountability system. And what they're looking for is they found that the growth scores, especially in small rural districts, are not accurate to make high-stake decisions. So they're going to put together a committee that's going to come up with a final report by November 15th to see what direction we want to go with that. Second one was sort of interesting to me. This was presented by St. Vrain School District. They want to start counting GED recipients as part of our graduation rate. And that in itself sort of seemed a little bit strange to me, but on top of that, they only want to count the GED recipients that come in from out of state or out of country. And I questioned them a lot on this, and they didn't really have any answers. It's not going to move forward as far as what CASB is doing now until they can present some more information on that. Third proposal is about increasing the hours, required hours. And there's no number out there yet that they've come up with, but they're just saying they want to increase the hours off of 1,080 that we currently have for secondary schools. One that doesn't pertain to us, but it could, I guess. There's a district up in the Denver area that the city is in the process of putting in a mental health facility within 1,000 feet of the school, that it's going to house sex offenders, and they want some legislation on that regarding that, as far as can that be done and not to stop that. So mill levy equity fund, and I didn't have a lot on that one. The thing that they're really looking at last year, this mill levy equity fund, and I don't know if you know any of this thing, Daniel, or not. Basically, they said all it benefited in the state of Colorado was 3 districts. And I asked what 3 districts those were, but nobody could tell me who they were. So that I'm curious as to why we've got some kind of legislation that's going out there to benefit 3 school districts and nobody else is getting anything of it. So so that one's not going to move forward so far. And then the digital accessibility, which I think we talked on before, that started July 1 of this past summer from last year's legislation. And they want to put together a resolution to make sure that if a third-party vendor, so if somebody else comes into our district that does not comply with that, and they get sued over that, we get sued over that because they're not complying with it, that the third-party vendor has to pay the fees on that. So not the school district for any penalties. So that was the Legislative Review Committee. Then a week ago Saturday, I went to the CASB boardsmanship workshop that the rest of you, I think, are going to go next Saturday. I went over to Alamosa for that one because I cannot be to the one in Durango a week from Saturday. And it is different sessions anyway. So our whole morning session was on school safety, put on by Christine Harms from the Office of School Safety, Director of School Safety. She talked about everything that basically we've been doing in our district, which was really good to hear. I mean, she was asking us what we were doing and she's commenting on it. One of the items that they're looking at right now is what the response to do with aggressive students' behavior and consequences. So that's something that their office is looking at really hard right now. Swatting, which I'd never heard it called swatting before. I knew the term, but I didn't hear it called swatting. And Alamosa had actually just gone through one of these. And this is where somebody makes a bogus threat just to get people off track and then can come into a school building or somewhere else and do certain things that shouldn't be done. So they're trying to get law enforcement away from an area is what they do. One item that was of importance and probably of really importance after this afternoon, student information can be shared under FERPA when students change schools regarding threat assessment. I think a lot of it, at least I always thought that you couldn't share that, but this was the director of the state association saying, yes, you can share that. So that was good to hear. And then the afternoon, lo and behold, we spent the whole afternoon talking about data with Dan Jorgensen. So that was pretty much what we did for the afternoon there. What else? Today at noon was a Rural Roundtable. We had a presentation called the Cook Center for Human Connections. Anyone to look them up, you can just Google them. It's pretty interesting presentation as far as resources out there for mental health for students, staff, parents, everybody. There's some free ones, but of course, a lot of them get into a cost factor too. Lots of updates on CASB for December for those of you going. There's going to be a lot of different rooms and stuff used this year. So if you've been to CASB, you're going to be going to a lot of new places. There's a lot of construction going on there. So the international room is going to be totally closed off. You can't get through there at all. And on October 24th, the Rural Alliance is doing a housing forum in Vail, just to talk about housing for school districts. So what else? BOCES meeting last Wednesday. It was actually pretty uneventful. Went over a lot of policy review. Main discussion was about the AU reorganization. The rep from Dove Creek felt that BOCES needed to hire a lot of extra help to handle the work that goes into this process. And Fortunately, nobody else on the BOCES board felt like that was necessary, so that's not going to happen now. And their main discussion was reviewing their salary schedule with the intent of raising salaries for next year to be more competitive. And that's all I've done the last 2 weeks. That's it.
Okay. Thank you for all of that. Good information. Any questions or anything? Anybody else have any reports? All right. All right, we will move on to citizens address the board, 1 hour limit, 3 minutes each, must turn any filled out ticket prior to meeting. So, okay. First up, we have Lisa Passel.
Lisa Passel, community member. I also want to say congratulations to the students and the teachers, the staff, the principals for the awesome improvement in our scores. After listening for the last several meetings at repeated requests for HR numbers such as resignations, terminations, hires. At last meeting, MB again addressed it. Could we please have this at each meeting? The promise was made that we would get a copy of the report. I could not find that anywhere for last month. So I made a Cora request. It's Cora request 064. It was received on 9/9, which was last Monday. It was due on 9/12. That was Thursday. I did not receive a response. So on Friday, I reached out and I said, hey, I have this Cora. Did you receive it? It was sent back to me and said, yes, it was received, gave me the number. Right there, you're out of compliance with the Cora Act that says 3 business days. And I was told that it was denied by Tom Burris. What I asked for was the number of hires, regular and J1, provide a breakdown by each type, the number of resignations and the number of terminations by month for 2024. I didn't ask for personal information, department, anything like that. Just asked for the numbers, and it was denied. So this school board ran on transparency, on accountability, on communication with the community. And yet even a simple request for mere numbers that could have been ran in less than 30 minutes by your HR department was denied. You were asking for millions from this community on a mill levy. And yet we don't have any trust in you. I hear over and over and over that all of us support our teachers. We all want them to have raises. And yet they don't want this administration and this board to be in charge of this mill levy because they don't trust you. So every email that's not answered, every email that's met with an attorney response, or in my case, threatened with legal action, and every failure to be transparent further erodes the trust of the community. So I am asking you, we have 1 more board meeting left, 1 more month before you ask for the mill levy override, to stop denying requests and start being transparent with what is really going on behind the scenes. Thank you.
Thank you. Nikki Crowley.
Thank you, board. I've got a few things, so I'm going to talk a little bit quickly, but happy to follow up on any of them after the fact. First off, I want to offer a celebration. I sat in a community meeting in August before your August meeting with another district member that was held by the Arc of the Southwest, which works with families and individuals who have special needs, both physical, intellectual, or emotional. And there were a couple families that were there who have kids in our district, and the praises that they sang for Chase Wesley should have been celebrated in this meeting last month. There were so many wonderful things said about that gentleman, and I just wanted it on record that there are families who are very thankful for the work that he does. I also now want to speak about the lockdown that happened today. As a parent who does not get email notifications because I get over 100 emails a day because of my work. I had no idea what was going on in that school. We did not receive phone calls. We did not receive texts. Last year we did. I'm not sure what has changed in our program, but I feel we need to get that back. Not everybody is connected to email at all times. I noticed in Mark Knox's report about Alma, so I'm not going to say much on this, but I absolutely feel more disconnected from what my child is doing at the high school academically with Alma than I have ever felt with Power School. I actually feel about as disconnected as I did when my kids were in elementary school and we didn't have anything. So there's no notifications. It's not an app. It's very, very difficult. And I'm a pretty tech savvy person. So if I feel like if people are struggling, we either need support in that to understand it better, or we need to figure some things out. Fourthly, the high school and the middle school theater departments have been using BookTix for all of their event ticketing. It is my understanding that we will be moving to the hometown ticketing system, which does have additional costs. When people buy cash, pay cash for tickets right now through BookTix, there's no charge for that. It is my understanding that now through hometown ticketing, there will be charges when people pay cash. There will be charges when people receive comp tickets because they have sponsorships. I feel like we're doing a disservice for a system we've had set up for multiple years that has been successful. And finally, I would like to reiterate, I still believe we should be broadcasting all special meetings and work sessions. I was initially told we're not going to do that because it costs money having tech support. Now that we are in this room with all the technology, I have seen tech support here at every single meeting. All of our other governing bodies that we elect broadcast all their meetings. And I would like to advocate again that this board do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Janet Huff.
Hello, board.
Hello. Okay.
Alrighty, I just want to address the board and also to let the public know that at the last school board meeting almost a month ago, I notified Sherry Noyes, the school board president, of my willingness to volunteer to fill the vacant seat for District A that was vacated in July by Rafe O'Brien's resignation. I have had email correspondences with Deborah Ramsey, who has stated that no one else has expressed interest in the seat. I've contacted Ms. Noyes via email several times, excuse me, and spoken in person with her several times as well. So my question that I'm wondering is, why as the board president is Sherry not doing her job of filling the seat? I urge everyone in attendance and watching on the YouTube channel to email the board in regarding this issue. Secondly, I would like to address the board regarding the first reading of the policy for non-legal name changes. I would like to say a special hello to Harry Burris. Since I do not believe that Harry has filled out any paperwork to be called by Harry's preferred name, I will refer to Harry by his legal name, Harry Burris. I find it interesting that he, as the superintendent, expects people to respect his chosen name and yet is supporting a written policy that basically denies students the same exact respect and rights that they are entitled to by law. In the original wording of HB 24-1039, non-legal name changes, there is no mention of a necessity for a written request, period. It does not mention any need for a written request to be signed by students and parents and approved by the principal. Nor is there any need to involve the superintendent in any non-legal name changes. It simply says that the teachers and staff must respect the name that a student has chosen, or it is a violation of the law. I think I know what is going on here. You all don't respect the state law, or you just don't respect the students' rights. So with your policy, you all made sure that the process is laborious and potentially harmful to students if they want to use any name that isn't their given name. You all have put an undue burden on the students and are putting them at risk. You all are here to serve the students, not the parents. The act requires a school to implement a written policy outlining how the school will honor a student's request to use a chosen name. Your policy does not honor or respect our students and is harmful to them. How does this policy fulfill the school board's motto, every student, every day? Simply put, it doesn't.
Thank you, Janet. Okay, moving on to board discussion items. We'll move on to the mill levy and bond effort.
Madam President, the mill levy wording has been approved by you. That mill levy wording has been sent to the county for placement on the ballot. We are in position 4, correct, Deborah?
4B.
4B. So we are, I'm going around visiting schools, telling them about the last discussion of the board where we talked about the 3.9 mils versus the $10,000 that we had hoped to get to with salaries, and how the drop in property values has, or the valuation in the county has affected that number. I've discussed that with all but one school now, and I do get good response from them. They understand what transpired. And as far as the ongoing ads, Deborah's approving those, we're approving those, getting those out as well as we can. Everybody in town should know exactly what we're doing. And we have been very clear that it is just for teachers and just for paraprofessionals. The rest of the school district will not be financially in the line with that mill levy. But I think we're going in a very positive direction with it. I'm really hoping that the community will all stand behind it and will all support it. And we can hopefully be competitive with our neighbors and be true to our own employees.
Any other discussion on that? Okay, we will move on to action items, the consent calendar. Can I get a motion to approve that?
Madam President, I'd recommend that we approve the consent calendar minus the one item that Director Lynch took out of the consent calendar, and approve the rest of them.
I'd like to second that.
Madam President, I have some comments to make about the consent calendar.
Okay.
So I noticed that several items were added after the Monday 5 p.m. deadline last week. And it's my personal belief that the administration should honor that deadline by not adding items after the agenda has been posted. And that would align better with Robert's Rules of Order and the concept of previous notice. In addition, items that involve an expenditure of $250,000 should not ever be put onto the consent calendar, in my opinion. Such expenditures deserve the board's attention and allow discussion and debate of those expenditures. And those are my comments.
I'm not sure that I got down the first and second. I heard Leland's second, but I didn't hear our first.
We didn't have one.
Can we go back to that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Rice, are you giving?
I'll move to accept this consent calendar. Now you can second.
Now I second it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, does anybody else have any other comments or questions regarding the consent calendar?
Online voting is now available. Motion passes 5-1.
Action item, the selection of CASB voting delegate. Can we get a motion, please?
I guess everybody knows this is October 18th, 19th, I believe, right? Friday, Saturday in Pueblo. This is the fall voting delegate. Every district is allowed one delegate there. So we need to name somebody for that.
So shall our motion include the nominee's name?
Yes.
Thank you.
If nobody else is going to jump for it, I'll volunteer to do that part.
So are you gonna motion?
Hmm.
Are you gonna motion that then?
I move that Ed Rice will be our voting delegate for the fall CASB.
I second. Okay.
Online voting is now available. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, policy first reading ACA, ACA-R, and ACA-E, non-legal name change for students.
I guess contrary to comments made a little earlier, I like this policy. I don't know how you separate parents and students. You say we're supposed to start students, but not parents. And what it all comes down to also is that we are a local state. So it is the school board that gets to determine these. So.
Need a motion?
It's a first reading.
It's first
Oh,
reading.
first reading. Yep, there we go. That's right. Okay, and then any other comments, concerns, questions on those readings?
And just a comment that when it says first reading, that's kind of a misnomer. We're not reading the policy at the meeting. Maybe we're reading it before we come to the meeting, but it's kind of a similar language that's used in the state legislature. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of misleading in my opinion, but at a first reading for our board, we do not vote to adopt or reject. That'll happen at the second reading.
Correct.
Okay. And with that being said, we also have item D, policy first reading, CCA organizational chart. Any comments, questions, concerns? Okay.
Been over this quite a bit. So.
All right, the capital reserve request 2024-2025 for Kemper HVAC acid testing in the amount of $6,254.
Madam President, all of these were performed by trained. All of them were doing exactly the same thing. I recommend approval of all those that work has been completed.
So
can I get a motion, please?
So I remember that when Rafe was the secretary, he had to read a part of this. And is that done before the motion is made or at what point?
Brad Miller said we didn't have to read that whole thing. It was just a motion of the
Just make the motion
money.
now is what he said.
Okay,
Yeah,
So,
good.
and since this was all done with train, I'm almost thinking you could do all three of them at the same
I
time.
was gonna say the same thing, to lump those together. So I'll make the motion to combine item E, F, and G. They're all to do with the HVAC acid testing at Kemper, Mesa, and Lewis Areola. And offhand, I don't know the total dollar amount of those three.
We're looking for a second.
I'll second it.
The total amount was 17,831.
Any other discussion?
Okay,
Mr. Burst, did you say 17,000?
Yes,
831, yeah.
yes.
Any comments, questions, concerns?
And these were ones that I put in the Q&A. If we're successful with everything with the lawsuit on that and stuff, this will all be covered.
Yes, sir.
Through that, correct?
Yes, sir. The installer was present for part of this testing. And Joseph Laver was here for that same part.
Mhm. Whenever you're ready.
Online voting is now available.
Mhm.
Motion passes unanimously.
So, tell me real quick so I can pass this the right way. Okay, moving on to action item H. Let's see if I can do the MCHS core content curriculum.
Madam President, I recommend that we approve the high school core content curriculum. This is not a set price right this moment. We have talked about this, Jim and I and Eddie and Justin, and we have found that We need a motion in a second first before I go further. Sorry,
Can you give me the amount that was suggested again?
$250,000.
Thank you.
Madam President.
Yes.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion. I move that the board reject the request for the high school core content curriculum that was requested in the by the administration per the written request.
That's it. Don't want to get into Harley Pro with you, Mike, but it has to be in a positive motion. So it has to be a motion to do that and then you vote against it.
I looked that up, Ed, and it does not have to be in a positive.
Okay.
Unless you can cite that, I would disagree with you. I looked that up.
Okay.
I'll second Mike's motion.
Online voting is now available.
I believe we need to have discussion first.
Oh, sorry.
Any discussion? Go ahead. Yeah.
Did the superintendent have something you wanted to say?
Well, in the vein of the motion, no, but what we did find is it's been several years since any curriculum has been purchased at the high school. This has led to people making their own curriculum. And what has happened with that is the scores that you see at the high school. We've also had parent concerns about the math classes and the lack of materials in the math classes. And again, there's a curriculum question of whether we're following a curriculum that can be tracked to a logical sequence for vertical alignment. Also, whether the curriculum can be tracked through different teachers on a horizontal line. These are two critical pieces to student achievement in the classroom. If you just use what you think feels good and hope for good outcomes, that's kind of like driving the car blind. So we got together about this issue. This would come out of the operational carryover. That's where curriculum comes from anyway. But we need to have, I believe we need to have that curriculum online as quick as we can. To satisfy that issue, we would have to get examples of the books in, we would have to have public comment, and then we would have to have formal adoption, which may be more money or it may be less.
So the reason I'm opposed to this is because two main reasons. One is the board has two or more policies that say how curriculum is to be reviewed, selected, and adopted. And this is not the way to go about it according to those policies. And I'm not in favor of voiding those policies in order to make it happen in this fashion. The other point I want to make is that the Board of Education has three main responsibilities, I guess. One is to select the superintendent. The other is to adopt a budget. And the third is curriculum. And if we approve this written request, I believe we are surrendering our responsibilities in selecting in the selection process for curriculums. I do not disagree with the need. I believe that's very important. I just believe this is not the proper way for the board to go through this curriculum purchase. And therefore, I think it ought to be, the request ought to be rejected, and we ought to go through the procedures and the methods set out in policy.
I agree. I'm agreeing with Mike on, I'm assuming, Mike, that you're saying the rejection is for the budget amount, not the need for the curriculum.
There's nothing in the request that identifies this strictly as a budget amount. It's to purchase curriculum, and I don't believe that's proper according to our policies.
And I agree. I think we ought to be looking at curriculum, but at this point, until we have it selected and know an exact dollar amount for that, we shouldn't be approving any dollar amount, I think.
Ms. Boniface, do you have any comments from your seat?
Yeah, my friend talked about, but I think the reason we're putting it before you, I think I'm okay with it, can't hear me. It's a critical need. It's not let's look next year, let's look in 2 years. It's a critical need. We have our math teachers teaching from a textbook from 2007. The standards changed in 2018, 2020. The textbooks are wrong material. We're teaching number lines in high school. That's a remedial math skill according to today's standards. We're teaching 6th grade level novels in high school advanced English because that's what we have. Teachers are going to pay teachers paying their own money to build their own curriculum, and they're just guessing based on the standards or not. And so that's why we're asking in a little bit different of a fashion. We don't plan on buying curriculum without your approval or your perusal. We want to pitch it to our parents. We want to show it with our students. We want teachers to help us collect it. But most importantly, we want it to be standards based, standards aligned. And that way our teachers, also when we have new teachers come in, we can say, here is a curriculum. And they can put resources in, supplant, put in other things they like, but right now it's all guesswork. Same with science. We're teaching off standards from 2012. When we did our observations with the CDE and Relay, every single person commented, what is your curriculum? And everybody was like, I don't know. And we looked at the resources, 2014, 2004, 2017. Old material, not relevant, just somebody's thinking it's a good resource because it says online it's for Algebra 1 or it's for English 2. And it's no fault of the teachers. They just have what they have at their disposal. In years past, we've had teachers who were resistant to curriculum. So you can say, do you need curriculum? No, we're good. Because they liked what they were teaching and they wanted to stick with that. Now we have teachers ready and willing to do the work, but they need the resources. Every department we've asked, what's your biggest need? We need curriculum. We need something to use to get the kids to where they need to be. We can only do that with material that's on grade level, appropriate, standards based. Parents can understand what we're doing, and it's not just pulled off the internet. And so I think that's the reason for the speed, but it's not meant to leave you out of the game. So we plan to put together 3 different proposals: English, math, science. Have the teacher kind of weigh in, pick their top one, present it to you, have a look through, have parents be able to look through it, and then decide and move forward. That number is a guess, but I bet it'll be a lot lower because right now you can purchase curriculum where you can get one class set of textbooks and everything digital. And so you get all the resources that can be printed, you get the stories, the books, everything, and you just need one class set of text, where it used to be you'd have to buy every single kid a textbook. So we overshot it by a lot, but I think we can get a really secure number pretty fast. But we need to move now because our kids deserve the best now, not in 2 years. So thank you.
Jim, do you have those samples ordered yet?
No, I have reached out to a couple of vendors.
It's not on.
I have reached out to a couple of vendors to get some materials in, but I haven't received anything yet.
Okay.
I had Principal Boniface and myself and her administrative team sat down last week and came up with a plan for each one of them tackling one specific area and working with teachers to come up with some suggestions. And I'd like to reiterate what Principal Boniface said is this certainly is not intended to be underhanded or in the back door, so to speak. It was just to address a specific need that was identified, particularly given that we've had a number of groups coming through doing walkthroughs with us and these similar questions had come up. So the number is a bit shocking for sure, but it is not something that I think that any of us think we would actually reach. It was just the point of this was largely to say, hey, can we get the ball rolling? Can we get started with this? Versus you as a board writing a $250,000 check and say, here, go buy whatever. That was never the intent. Right. It was really merely to say, hey, we want to get started with this, and having your consent to do so.
You'll have to forgive me because that was how I read it on the consent calendar is here's a blank check for $250. We would love to approve actual spends for justifiable curriculum like we have in the past. It just without knowing, one paragraph saying we need curriculum wasn't enough to justify the expense in my mind.
I'm with Mike on that too. I think that we need to go back and go through the Robert Rules of Order and stuff and present it that way. The faster, the better that we can get through this.
So basically, you're just asking for approval to get started. And then you bring all that back to us for the actual process that we would use per our policy.
Yeah, I mean, we would, similar to previous adoptions of any material, we would, there would be a public period of viewing. It would take some, time to make sure that our school accountability committees have access to that. So we're getting input from all of these different groups. It's not, admittedly, we probably jumped at this a little too quickly and for the sake of trying to get it in front of you. But really the intent was to say, hey, can we get this process started so that we can start looking at these things and getting the right stuff in front of our kids?
I think that too, the critical nature of what we have found with the visit of relay and the review of data over years, we see exactly where this lies. So it's a critical point to get this process going and then to make a purchase. What we are doing very clearly is there is a set number of years and we replenish books and that kind of thing. We're out of sync with that all the way around. So the question really lies in, do we want the best that we can get in front of our kids today? And that's a rhetorical question, but we have stuff that the class that I was in late last spring, was doing a concept that should have been done in January or February, and it was May. So the vertical alignment was completely out of whack. That's what we need.
Yes. Yep.
I'd also like to not only concur with Mr. Burris that we're grossly out of adoption for textbooks, but for the board to understand, in addition to the textbooks, it's not just that the textbooks is the curriculum, but it ensures that they're compliant textbooks by the state that are approved, that have the Colorado state standards. And so we've gone through several cycles where we haven't adopted over the years textbooks, as you can tell from the ages that Dr. Boniface has communicated today. In addition, Mr. Pearson at the middle school has been asking us since last year also about some curriculum for some of his core content classes. As you remember, at one time there was Wit for Wisdom that was adopted, and then there were some changes that occurred through the campus and through the district and what was used out of that. But I want the board to understand it's not only textbooks that we need to get quickly to speed, but also curriculum that involves the use of the public, the teachers, and of course, the principals and the central office administration about what best fit or our complement the textbook adoption. But this is a key piece to the professional learning communities that's going on, because they're asking for help that they don't have that resource. And we're asking beginning teachers, J1 teachers, or even experienced teachers to come up with the curriculum for those standards that are in the pacing guide. So it's a very difficult, because most teachers are not curriculum writers. And that is something that takes a lot of expertise. And so what we do is try to use the curriculum that we purchase and help facilitate how they would use that to make those kind of filtered decisions when they do lesson planning and the backward design from the assessment. So we're a critical mass. I know that everyone has good intentions. We'll move quick on it, but please be aware that it may call for some special meetings to address this. It cannot wait for the regular cycle of the regular meeting.
And when you keep saying quickly on this, is this new curriculum going to be ready for next fall? Is that what you're thinking, or what?
No, I think it needs to be now for this academic year, because if not, you lose this year. You'll continue to get the same results. They've done some great work at middle school, but the staff has been more stable at the middle school. We've had more changes in the secondary, the high school. And then it's the end of the whole academic process of teaching where it gets to that level that we've been missing the mark. And I think that's why you see the misalignment of PSAT, SAT, and the science, CMAS, and so forth, is because there's just a gross misalignment. Thank you.
I just wanted to add one thing. Our teachers, for the most part, have about one planning period a day, and they grade and they plan and they meet and they collaborate. And I want to echo what Mr. Ramirez said. Most teachers are not curriculum writers, and we ask a lot out of our teachers. And they've done a lot of great things over the past couple of years to improve scores throughout the district. I'm concerned that if we continue to ask them to do that, and then also this continues to be piled on the work of writing curriculum or trying to align curriculum or try to identify the vertical scope and sequence of that curriculum, that it'll contribute to burnout. And we want to attract teachers and retain teachers that are good teachers. We don't want to have to recycle every so many years because there's just so much on their plate. So if this is something we can take off their plate and help them be more effective teachers and give them a little bit of time to do the other things that we're asking them to do, I think it would be a benefit.
So you mentioned ELA, math, and science. What about social studies?
So social studies is a need, but it is not as critical. Those teachers have put together a pretty solid curriculum. Their textbooks aren't as old, but ideally, yes, we need curriculum across the board. Even our Ed for You, our ag teachers, our CP teachers have no curriculum. They're piecemealing it together. And so when you see our data and it's kind of flat, that is why. It's hard to move when you don't have standards-based curriculum. And he's right, our teachers are having to spend a ton of time creating these things and pulling worksheets the night before. And what can I use the next day? And maybe Cruz can speak to what is the where at the high school? Is it where it should be? And are we setting them up for college success if they're still doing 2012 standards?
So everything that I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, but everything that I'm hearing is that you're trying to convince the board of the need. I don't think there's anybody who's arguing there's no need. Actually, I'm really excited that you have found this. You know what that means? You know what that means for our district? It means if you get a good curriculum, how high will our scores be next year? That's fantastic in my mind. I just want to do it by the policy.
Sure.
I want to follow the process. I heard somebody say, well, we're still going to follow the process. So
why are you asking for this money? The way it's written, I agree with the description, a blank check. It's not written right. I think you need to follow the policy on selecting curriculum. And I'm not so sure as you need the board's permission to start doing this. I don't think you need to ask for money to start doing this. I think you ought to go out and go through the process of searching, finding, putting them out for review and get it done as quickly as possible. I really like that. And I look forward to it, but I want to do it by policy, not by what appears to me to be a sidestep.
Mm-hmm.
I can certainly appreciate that. And I will, as the leader of this show, we did have the discussion. I did make this decision to move forward because we do see the extreme need and almost the emergency position of it. I accept absolutely responsibility of the way this went, but we will get on it as quickly as we can. We are hoping to have curriculum, and I hope things too quickly sometimes. Hope to have new curriculum before Christmas. And that'll be a tall order, Jim.
How did we get to September without bringing this before the board previously?
There were things that we saw in the data that it just never occurred to me we didn't have books. My first year here, we had a teacher who I figured had 100 kids, fall semester and spring semester. And there were 86 Fs out of those kids. And so I asked what book they were using. Well, they were using this particular book that is not approved. And what were the standards that were being, help me because I'm the math teacher here. What were the standards that were being addressed through that particular book and reading that book? Well, obviously by our scores, they weren't real great alignment with the standards. But I never put it together that we had not been in the rotation of books. You're a teacher and I'm a teacher. Every 5 years we bought new books. That's the way it works, but not at the high school.
Without curriculum, and it stinks. They need good curriculum. I do agree with that. I'm just sort of leaning here with Mike that we need to do the process properly. And I'm just a little bit shocked that there's not curriculum already. I have no idea.
Madam President?
Yes.
I've been here since October the 10th, 2022. It's part of the systemic dysfunction of the organization that has been going on historically for many years. This didn't happen overnight. And as we began to improve the district and make recommendations and changes and build the administration of the campus as far as the knowledge, it was a perfect storm before, and this is where we're at. And so this is how, when you ask how did we not know this or how did it get to it, there were other pressing needs that were addressed even before that. But as Mr. Burris began the data driven instruction and the use of data to inform how well we teach and by measuring, then this is how some of this has evolved to be exposed. And we now know that's just a big hole in what we're providing tools for teachers to be able to teach.
Yep.
But we should have always been, the board should have always knows previous to this board, the textbook adoption cycle that wasn't even followed. And that's a state thing. All Colorado schools will adopt textbooks when it's time, especially when they change the standards.
Yeah, and that was actually gonna be one of my questions, that I thought we were on like a rotation
Mm.
for, and so I can absolutely understand like how this came about. I guess what I would say is at this point, this doesn't even really become an action item.
No.
It just,
Really?
just that you can go out and solicit your curriculums and go about like per the policy.
Yeah.
That I was actually trying to look that up while I
So-
was sitting here, but
We have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. We're in discussion. At some point, we need to vote on the motion and then I think you're.
I think it's just you vote on it instead and then they just move on.
Yeah. So the motion is to reject the request.
For the money.
Yes, but to fully support the fact that
Absolutely.
we need to improve the
Well,
curriculum.
what we did was we brought it to your attention in a big way here. And that's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I read it as a request to move forward with the process of acquiring. That's how I read it. So, okay. So does everybody understand the question now and which way that they plan to vote correctly?
So-
It kind of twists it a little bit.
So
The question as Mike presented it was to reject this expense, but we're supporting the intent. So, yeah.
Well,
we're
you have to be careful. You're voting on the request. You're not voting to support the idea of getting curriculum.
Right.
The motion is to reject the request for money. And there's reasons for that. We're not voting to support the idea of getting curriculum.
Mhm.
Do you understand the difference? Because it's important.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay, I think we're ready.
Online voting's now available.
I don't think I have mine yet. Here we are.
Motion passes unanimously.
And we will bring it back as quick as we can.
I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then I'm guessing that we'll have some kind of a rotation put in plan so that years down the road that we don't run into this again. All right. Thank you everyone for attending tonight, joining us. Good celebrations tonight. So I will adjourn this meeting at 8:00.